You're sitting at your kitchen table, probably late at night, staring at a spreadsheet or just scrolling through your banking app on your phone. And you feel a little stuck. You've been doing everything right. You're contributing to your 401k. Maybe you paid off your car. You stopped buying those $5 lattes every single morning even though you really missed them. And generally speaking, you feel responsible. But when you look at a total number, it just doesn't look like enough. You do the mental math, how many years until I can retire? How many years until I can just breathe? The math is scary. It feels like you're running on a treadmill where the speed keeps increasing and you're just trying not to fly off the back. It's a quiet kind of anxiety, isn't it? The kind that sits in the back of your head while you're driving to work or brushing your teeth. My name is Bob, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why some people seem to effortlessly build massive wealth piles, while others who are just as smart, just as hardworking, and make just as much money stay stuck in that same loop of financial mediocrity for decades. I've spent years looking at the data, reading the studies, and talking to real people about their money. And I've realized that there is this one specific, massive hurdle that stops the vast majority of people from ever becoming truly wealthy. It's not the first $1,000, it's not the first 100,000, and it's technically not even $1 million. Today, I want to talk to you about the $500,000 milestone. Now, I know what you're thinking. $500,000. B-O-B. That sounds like a fantasy. I'm just trying to get my credit card paid down, and I get that. I really do. But here's the thing that nobody really talks about in the shiny, happy world of YouTube finance. Getting your first $100,000 is hard. Yes, it takes grit. It takes sacrifice. But $500,000? That is a completely different beast. It is the psychological breaking point where most people quit, tap out, or get distracted by lifestyle creep. And because they do, they never actually reach the escape velocity needed to be free. Because if you can understand why, this number is so hard to reach, and more importantly, what happens on the other side of it, it changes the entire way you look at your future. It's the difference between working until you're 75 and having an option to walk away while you still have your health. Let's dive into this, because it's not just about math, it's about what happens to your brain when you start approaching serious money. So, let's start with the biggest enemy of this $500,000 milestone. It's not the stock market crashing. It's not a bad investment. It's you, it's me, it's human nature. And we call this lifestyle inflation or lifestyle creep. But I think we need to be more specific about it because lifestyle inflation sounds like buying a Ferrari the minute you get a raise. For most of us, it's much more subtle than that. It starts when you get your first real job out of college. You live in an apartment with paper-thin walls and a roommate who steals your yogurt. You tell yourself, as soon as I get a raise, I'm getting my own place. You get the raise, you move out. Feels great. You have freedom. You spend a little more on groceries because you can buy the good bread now. Then, a few years later, you get promoted. You think, you know what? I've earned it. I'm going to lease a slightly nicer car. Nothing crazy, just something with Bluetooth that doesn't smell like old socks. And you do it. Then you get married. Or maybe you move to a city with better job opportunities, so the rent goes up. You buy a house because that's what adults do, and with the house comes the furniture, the insurance, the HOA fees. It's a lawnmower you use twice a year. This happens over 10 or 15 years. It's a slow drip. It's barely noticeable day to day. But if you zoom out, the trajectory of your spending moves in perfect lockstep with the trajectory of your income. And this is the trap. If you're making $80,000 a year and spending $75,000, you are saving $5,000. If you get promoted to $120,000 and you're spending slowly, naturally drifts up to $115,000 because you deserve a better life. You are still only saving $5,000? Do you see the problem? To hit $500,000, you have to break that cycle. You have to be willing to be the weirdo who makes six figures but lives like they make five, at least for a while. And that is incredibly hard because we are social creatures. When your friends start upgrading their kitchens or taking vacations to Italy, it feels almost physically painful to say, no, I'm going to put that money into an index fund instead. It feels like you're missing out on life. But here's the brutal truth. It took me a long time to accept the $500,000. The dollar milestone is usually lost $50 at a time. It's lost in the upgraded phone plans. The dinners out that you don't really remember 2 days later, and the subscription services that pile up like digital clutter. If you want to reach this level, You have to become hyper-aware of this drift. I'm not saying you have to live in a shack and eat ramen. I'm not saying that at all. But you have to defend the gap between your income and your expenses like a junkyard dog. You have to realize that every time you ratchet your lifestyle up permanently, you're pushing the $500,000 finish line further into the future. And eventually, you push it so far out that it just feels impossible. So you stop trying. That is where most people live. They have nice things, sure. But they are on a treadmill they can never step off of because their monthly nut to the amount of money you need to survive is so high that they are terrified of losing their job. We want to get to a place where our investments pay for our life, not our boss. That's the goal. Okay, let's talk about the math for a second, but I promise to keep it painless. One of the reasons people quit before $500,000 is that the middle years are incredibly boring. This is the psychological valley of despair. When you first start investing, let's say you put in $10,000. If the market does well, maybe you make $1,000 or $2,000 in a year. That's exciting. It's a 10 or 20% return. It feels like free money. You check your app, you see the green line, and you get a dopamine hit. But as your balance grows, something strange happens. Or, rather, something strange doesn't happen. Let's fast forward. You've been grinding for a decade. You've managed to scrape together $200,000. That is a life-changing amount of money for a lot of people, right? But in the context of financial independence, it feels small. If the market has a normal year, say 7 or 8%, your $200,000 makes about $14,000 to $16,000. That's great money. But compared to your salary, if you're making $80,000, that $16,000 doesn't feel like it moves the needle. It's not enough to quit your job. It's not enough to buy a Ferrari. It's just there. This is the dead zone. This is where the $500,000 milestone hides. In this zone, your contributions, the money you actively save from your paycheck, are doing way more heavy lifting than your investment returns. If you're saving $1,000 a month, that's $12,000 a year. Your market return of $16,000 is slightly more, but they're in the same ballpark. You don't feel the magic of compounding yet. You just feel the pain of saving. Most people hit this wall around the $250,000 to $350,000 mark. They look at their balance and think, I have been sacrificing for 10 years, and I have this pile of money, but my life hasn't really changed. I still have to wake up early. I still have to deal with a boss I don't like. I still stress about bills, and this is the moment where the temptation to say, screw it, and just spend the money on a boat or a massive renovation becomes overwhelming. We want immediate gratification. We want the effort to match the reward now. But wealth building is a deferred gratification game on steroids. To push through this, you have to change what you're looking at. You can't look at the balance and ask, can I retire today? You have to look at the trajectory. You have to trust the math that says, okay, right now, my money is working, but I'm still the engine. But if I just keep going, there will be a flip. The flip is the tipping point where your investments start earning more than you contribute. That usually happens around the $400,000 to $500,000 mark, depending on your savings rate. Once you cross that line, the snowball is rolling downhill so fast that you couldn't stop it if you tried. But getting to the top of that hill, that is the grunt work. That is the unsexy, thankless, heavy lifting. And that is why most people never reach $500,000. They get tired of pushing the rock up the hill before they see it start to roll down on its own. There is another, more subtle danger that happens as you approach this $500,000 mark, and it's purely psychological. It's the shift in your mindset from I need to be careful to I'm basically rich. I saw this happen with a friend of mine. Let's call him Dave. Dave was a saver. He was a machine. By age 35, he had about $350,000. He drove a beat-up Honda,